once you have everything sanded, you're going to be working on making your
charging station.
Get ready to stain everything. But we have to glue this piece together. And it's going to take time just because we have to be patient and wait for the glue to dry. Now, what you're going to need for that are all these little pieces. So you're going to go ahead and take your clock face and base, set them off to the side. You're then going to need to make sure you sort your parts and get it ready to go. Then your instructor will point out that somewhere in the room are going to be some clamps and a bottle of glue. You're going to go ahead and get a bottle of glue, and you're going to get one clamp for you, one clamp for your partner. You're also going to need to grab a paper towel for you and a paper towel for your partner. You're going to go ahead and set the paper towel down on the countertop. And you're going to get one clamp, and your partner is going to get one clamp. That way you can do this step together at the same time. We're going to start with the big piece. And you'll notice you should have marked it and should have your initials where it says no sand. That's going to go down. And so I'm going to put one side, what's going to be the front of the charging station. You're then going to need your smaller pieces, and you should have your initials on what would be the front and back, and then what would be on the bottom. And you want to kind of take a look at which side looks nicer on the outside, and I'm going to put that right out here on the outside. You're eventually going to do the same for the other one. And I'm just going to kind of give them a check to make sure I have them set up. You're going to do the same with the larger small piece, right? Going to go right there. So I'm going to move that one off to the side. Make sure I like the way this one looks. And I'm going to move it off to the side. So I'm going to start with one piece. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of glue, a very small, light dime side bead of glue right there on that piece. To do that, I need to use my glue bottle. My glue bottle does not twist, it simply pulls open. So I just simply pull up on that and the glue will come out. I'm going to go ahead and put a small, thin bead, so it's not a lot of glue. Small dime sized bead of glue, so it's a very thin puddle. Emphasis on thin. It's not a big, heavy puddle. It's a thin puddle. I'm then going to put that right up here, flat, like the front piece is, and I want to try to make it flush with this edge. I'm then going to take the quick clamp, and I have a release right here, so it releases and lets it slide down that bar, and then I have a trigger, which moves that forward. I'm going to go ahead and release it so it's just slightly wider than my piece. And I'm then going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this right up next to it. And as I get closer, I'm going to make sure that I'm staying flush on that edge and that I'm staying flat to the table. And I'm going to go ahead and squeeze that piece together. Once again, making sure that both pieces are sitting flat. So that means I can kind of lift it up now, make sure it's coming flat on the edge, and that it's up against the side. I squeeze that tight, and I'm going to let that sit. So if I look up at the clock right now, I would watch the time, and I'd say, okay, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to unclamp, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So once again, make sure it's sitting flat, and if you want, you can always take your piece, kind of help hold up the clamp a little bit so it's sitting flat, and you're going to let that dry for about 5 minutes. After it's been at least 5 minutes, you're going to go ahead and unclamp the first side, and you're going to do the same thing with the other side. So I'm going to come back, kind of make sure it looks all right, make sure that I have the no side facing down, the clean side facing up. I once again go ahead and put a small thin dime sized bead of glue, flush it up to the edge, take my clamp, open it up a little bit, hold it down flush and flat, squeeze the clamp together, floats around on me a little bit, I move it over. Make sure I'm flush. Once again, go ahead and double check the bottom to make sure you're smooth and even. You're then going to go ahead, once again, take a look at the clock. Let that set for at least 5 minutes. It's been at least 5 minutes. You're going to unclamp. And you're going to do the same thing with the bigger pieces. Now this time you have a no on both sides because you end up having this piece get glued on top. But you're going to go ahead, once again, down towards the bottom. You're going to put a thin dime-sized bead of glue. Line it up flat on the table and flush with the side. Open up your clamp a little bit more. Once again, make sure you're staying flat and flush. Clamp it down. If you need to unloosen it and slide it a little bit, you can. Once again, make sure you're flush on the sides. You can lift up, double check to make sure you're flush on the bottom. Once again, you would look at the clock. Go ahead and give it now once again, after it's been about 5 minutes, you're going to unclamp. You're going to take your glue bottle and you're going to make sure you check which side you want facing out. Put a small, thin dime-sized bead of glue once again. Go ahead and make sure you're sitting flat and flush. Take your clamp. Bring your pieces together. Once again, make sure you're sitting flat and flush with the outside edge. You're going to clamp those together. Now once again, you can lift that up, make sure you're sitting smooth across the bottom, that it didn't lift up on you at all. If it did, unclamp it, clamp it back down, give it a double check, make sure you're sitting flush and flat. And once again, you would look at the clock, give it about 5 minutes to sit, and then we just have our last piece to put on. At least 5 minutes, you're going to go ahead and unclamp your piece, and you have one more piece to glue down. And once again, you want to make sure you don't have any marks on the top, and you're going to glue this piece right down on top, and we're going to put this kind of a center pressure. So what that's going to look like is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a thin bead of glue over on the side, very thin, small bead of glue. If you get too much, don't be afraid to take your paper towel because you won't need it anymore, and wipe up a little bit of that excess glue, because once again you want just a thin bead. You're then going to go ahead, make sure it's facing down. This time you want to make sure you're flush with the outside edges and the front. And for this one, I'm going to need your clamp and your partner's clamp, so you're going to clamp one person's at a time. And what you're going to do is you're going to start on one side, and you're going to go ahead and clamp down, making sure you're flush with the back, flush with the front, flush with the outside. And you can always put it down just a little bit light till you get the other one on. You're then going to go ahead, get your partner's clamp. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to come in, make sure I'm flush on the front, flush on the back, on the sides. I'm flush on the front, flush on the back. I then can tighten down the other side, making sure I don't go crooked. Now you might have some glue that kind of oozes out. You want to take your paper towel, and you can always wet it down a little bit too, but you want to wipe up any excess glue leakage from both the front and the back, because if you don't, it will not stain where there's glue. But once again, once you have that glued in flush and flat, You'll look at the clock, give it about 5 minutes, unclamp, and you'll do the exact same thing on your partners. Now once again, once it's been at least 5 minutes, you're going to unclamp your clamps. If your partner hasn't finished theirs, you're going to let them finish gluing theirs. But you should now have a nice, flat, glued together springboard holder, which will be ready to stain. So once you have this done, you'll have your face, your base all sanded, and your next step would be to stain them.